Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on the program. I'm Amarachi Ubani. This week, we take on an issue that has Nigerians divided on free speech and fundamental human rights. You may have already heard about the federal government's ban of social media platform and microblogging site Twitter because it deleted a tweet by the president that Twitter considered inciting and said it broke its rules. Amidst the reactions trailing this from every sector is that of the international community. The United States, the UK, Canada, and the EU have reacted to the move by the federal government as well. We'll be looking into their responses and we'll be going over them with Senior Lecturer of Law at Swansea University in the United Kingdom, Dr. Nina Ifeanyi Ajufo. But let's kick things off with a quick check on other discussions in diplomatic circles.
22-year-old Nigerian-American Steve Ezonu has won the Grand Prairie City Council runoff election in the U.S. state of Texas. Ezonu beat his closest rival in the June 5th runoff election, Greg Geisner, with 3,903 votes as against Greg's 3,720. He polled 51.2% of the votes as against Greg's 48.8%. Chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri Erewa, congratulated him in a statement saying that this has proven that hard work and dedication to duty pays. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he does not care whether or not he is blocked somewhere on social media, and what he cared the most was the support of the Russian people for his current position as the president of the country. He was speaking at a press conference where he also said that Europe is slow to approve Russia's vaccine against COVID-19 because of a battle for money, and that commercial interests were being put ahead of the welfare of European citizens. Britain's war veterans on Sunday watched the opening of the Normandy Memorial from Staffordshire, the anniversary of D-Day, the largest seaborne invasion in history which helped bring World War II to an end. Normandy veteran George Batts started campaigning for the memorial in 2012. He watched the ceremony from the National Memorial Arboretum due to coronavirus restrictions, limiting the number of in-person attendees in France. According to its website, the memorial, located in Versailles in France, records the names of the 22,442 servicemen and women under British command who fell on D-Day and during the Battle of Normandy in the summer of 1944. It includes a sculpture, wall with names of those who died on D-Day, a stone columns with names of people who died between D-Day and August 1944, as well as a French memorial for French civilians who lost their lives.
Got to get rid of that. We spent a lot of money putting that bloody gas in.
Welcome back. Between Friday and now, following the president's indefinite ban of Twitter in Nigeria, it was announced that the Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Abubakar Malami, had directed the Director of Public Prosecution of the Federation to swing into action and commence in earnest the prosecution of Nigerians defying the government's ban of Twitter, but did not state the specific law being violated. So according to him, the point is that Twitter has been banned and no one should try to use Twitter, not even through the virtual private network. He says journalists will be invited to the prosecution of violating Nigerians, and then they will know which laws are used to prosecute. But the fact is that VPNs are not illegal, and there is no law currently in Nigeria against their use. However, there are those who use them for illegal purposes. Twitter has responded to the ban by the Nigerian government, saying via Twitter policy, "We are deeply concerned by the blocking of Twitter in Nigeria. Access to free and #open internet is an essential human right in modern society. We all work to restore access for all those in Nigeria who rely on Twitter to communicate and connect with the world. #keep it on." The Twitter ban in Nigeria has drawn international attention, as we said earlier. The diplomatic missions of Canada, the European Union delegation to Nigeria, the Republic of Ireland, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America all came together to release a joint statement carrying their response. In the statement, they said they wish to convey their disappointment over the Nigerian government's announcement suspending Twitter and propose registration requirements for other social media. They strongly support the fundamental human rights of free expression and access to information as a pillar of democracy in Nigeria as around the world, and say that these rights apply online as well as offline. It further reads, banning systems of expressions is not the answer. These measures inhibit access to information and commerce at precisely the moment when Nigeria needs to foster inclusive dialogue and expression of opinions, as well as share vital information in this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. The path to a more secure Nigeria lies in more, not less, communication to accompany the concerted efforts of Nigeria's citizens in fulsome dialogue towards unity, peace, and prosperity. As Nigeria's partners, we stand ready to assist in achieving these goals. To more reactions now, international law expert and UN Peace Ambassador Adiola Oyinlade says the Attorney General's directive to the Director of Public Prosecution to begin immediate prosecution of those who violate the federal government's order suspending Twitter operations in Nigeria is illegal and unconstitutional, and that the executive order cannot override the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. He bases his thoughts on the Supreme Court's decision that before a crime can be committed, it has to be defined by the law validly enacted by the National Assembly or State Houses of Assembly, with punishment described. He says arrest and prosecution of Nigerian citizens for using Twitter contravenes the grand norm, which is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. As of 2019, the only countries that have banned Twitter are China, Iran, North Korea, and Turkmenistan. Nigeria joined the list in 2021. Dr. Nena Ifeanyi Ajifo, my guest today, is a Nigerian lawyer and academic specializing in law and technology. She's a senior lecturer of law and technology at the School of Law, Swansea University in the United Kingdom. Her teaching and research interests relate to the intersection of law and technology, including the governance of emerging technologies and rule of law in cyberspace, addressing crime in cyberspace, human rights online, and the human rights implications of technology. She joins me now from Swansea. Dr. Nena Ifeanyi Ajifo, thank you for joining me on the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
So about today's discussion, this all stems from the president's tweet, which has been deleted by Twitter. And just a reminder, to our viewers, the president of Nigeria had tweeted, many of those misbehaving today are too young to be aware of the destruction and loss of lives that occurred during the Biafra War. Those of us in the fields for 30 months who went through the war will treat them in the language they understand. Now, emotions aside, and I know that this was the end of a series of tweets that he had made that day. Do you agree that this violates any social media rules?
Now, really from an academic point of view, social media platforms have their own terms and conditions, depending on the agenda of the particular social media platform. So in this case, looking at Twitter's terms and conditions or rules, there are certain rules which they have stipulated. For example, you may not threaten violence against an individual or a group of people, rules against terrorism, abuse and harassment, or hateful conduct against a group of people, whether of ethnic, racial, age, or religious affiliation. So it all depends on who makes the tweet or who is tweeting and the audience receiving the tweet. Now, social media platforms also recognize that, particularly Twitter, that some people can use violent language as part of hyperbolic speech. Now, the question here is not just in terms of the rules per se, but also who is receiving the tweet. And that was what happened here, because speech, whether written or said, can be received positively, it can be received negatively. So it is about the audience. And remember, Twitter allows users, even non-users, to report tweets. And this is what happened in this case. So there was an overwhelming report before the tweet was deleted. So I may understand differently because I would never believe that a democratic government would mean a statement in the way it was received. The difference is how we deal with such perceptions when it has happened. And that's what would have been the best situation here, to see that Nigerians understand the tweet in the way it was meant and not in the way it was perceived. So it depends on the social media platform. And yes, if they stipulate that it goes against their rules, then yes, that is what it is.
So the key word here, of course, is perception, because tweets like this make it out every day on social media. I mean, those of us who monitor tweets from the US or from other parts of the world, you see citizens just tweeting, everything, their thoughts, when policy statements are made, people express themselves on Twitter, they say their minds. And Nigerians also have been speaking their minds on Twitter. And I know the government did point out, they gave instances where during the NSAS protests, when people were tweeting and those were making inciting comments on Twitter, they said Twitter didn't shut them down and all of that. So at the end of the day, you say it's perception. But then why zero in on this one?
I refuse that there is a particular focus on this tweet, or I refuse that tweets, particularly like that, make it out every day. I refuse that Twitter particularly zeroed in on that tweet. Just today, for example, Twitter suspended, not even deleted, suspended a tweet by a very popular American author and journalist for tweeting anti-vaccine misinformation. So you see, it depends, like I said, on who makes the tweet and the responsibility and obligation that is attached to the personality of the person tweeting. If someone who has no public reputational value, for example, makes a tweet, some random tweet, the effect may not be as far-reaching as when that tweet is made by a public figure. So that is why you even have certain legal standards attached to reputational value when you come to things like defamation. So, we need to analyze this scenario. We are all agents of justice in the society, including social media hosts, internet intermediaries, internet service providers also have responsibility to ensure safe, secure, and trusted cyberspace. So most times, social media takedowns do not just happen randomly. When users complain and report posts, the social media platform also have a responsibility to respond based on their terms and conditions. And in order to achieve rules and policies of social media platforms, anyone can report potential violations of their policies. They are then obligated to take action. So if a tweet, for example, can further discordance and a social media platform does not take action, they could be responsible if insecurity stems from that. And this also happens even beyond tweets. Social media hosts, internet service providers can be held accountable for illegal activities online if they fail to take responsibility. Amazon has been held accountable for IP violation rights. So many internet service providers or online hosts have been held liable. So if an overwhelming population of your users report a tweet, then it is also responsible behavior to do something. So I refuse that they zero in on this. And one thing I must add is we are treating Twitter as if Twitter is some country that Nigeria owns an obligation to. This is a tech company. It doesn't have to have a high commission somewhere. It is not a state. And with all due respect, it's as if we are overly exaggerating our importance in placing ourselves at the high top of the agenda of some tech company that has no, is not subordinate, in terms of our territorial space. So absolutely, I disagree that there was a particular targeting or focus on this tweet in particular.
My conversation with Dr. Nina Ifeanyi-Ejiofor continues after the break. Please join us. Kanu's tweets threatening the Nigeria security forces if they come to the east, promising their deaths. This kind of justifies what the federal government has been saying, that there are also personalities who are tweeting, and Twitter has double standard, by not also shutting them down. But Twitter did delete this particular tweet by Nnamdi Kanu that was made on Sunday. What is your response to that?
If, like I said, nobody is exempted from rules when you have to think about applicable laws in cyberspace. So if there is a report, if the Twitter, for example, is monitoring tweets, it has that responsibility. And if there is a report as well, I would definitely not comment, on political issues or things like IPOP, but if there is a report, absolutely. If there is a hateful comment like that, absolutely, Twitter is obligated to take it down.
Let's take a look at the response of the international community. The UK, the US, Canada, the European Union all put together a joint statement. They're standing up for fundamental human rights and freedom of expression, being that these are sovereign countries reacting to a domestic matter. Do you think this is a violation of Nigeria's sovereignty in itself? Ideally, they shouldn't be commenting on domestic issues, shouldn't be intervening in domestic issues. But here they are. You already mentioned that Twitter is a third party. It is not a country, it is not a state. But you have the international community reacting to the federal government's ban on Twitter.
Yes, cyberspace is not tied to any geographically proximate location. So in terms of territorial sovereignty or jurisdiction, the discourse begins to shift a bit. Now, Twitter may not be a state, but citizens of a state express their fundamental human rights via that platform. Human rights exist online as they do offline, and they have to be respected in full. Now, let's look at, for example, Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. This is an international convention. Nigeria is a party to that convention. All the states you have mentioned are parties to that convention. It guarantees the right to freedom of information by stating that everyone has a right to freedom of expression, the right to seek information, receive and impart information and ideas of all kinds, regardless of frontiers, whether orally, whether in writing, in print, or through any media, including social media. So if you're a party to a convention and it's an international convention which has other state parties, you are obligated. And it's not just with this issue of digital rights. States always admonish other states when they feel that they are not measuring up to expectations. Now, blanket internet shutdowns, generic blocking, and filtering of services are considered by the UN as a violation of international human rights law. So if you have such violations by other states, it's only normal. Even the UN's roadmap on digital cooperation, which was recently released, it points out to the fact that states must cooperate, even though in essence of eradicating disinformation, the states must work together to ensure international human rights law, even in an age of the digital space. It also mentions that states must avoid disruptive blanket internet shutdown, and this relies on corporations by states. So no state has the right to take away the rights of its citizens. And in the internet age, other states have an obligation to speak up when states seem like they're precluding that right for their citizens.
Yeah, just to buttress your point, I mean, when the elections have held in some countries in Africa and the internet has been shut down, they have come under condemnation and face a lot of condemnation for that. But the Attorney General of the Federation, as you already know and you already heard, has directed that those violating the Twitter ban should be prosecuted. I have two questions here. First of all, can they be prosecuted? Are people violating the law here by going around this ban and still being on Twitter? And then this prosecution of people, and they're saying they would not know what violations that have been committed until they face prosecution. Is that right?
I mean, you only prosecute people for breach of existing law, and there is no law in Nigeria presently prohibiting the use of social media. So are we automatically criminalizing the use of social media in Nigeria? Again, I must say that laws, policies may be said in the most draconian terms. The fact is, if it's not enforceable, then it's as good as a nullity. So whatever the Office of the Attorney General decides to opt them, but then let's look at it in terms of digital capacity and enforcement. Do we even have the capacity? Even back to the question, talking about sovereignty in the digital age. Now, you're going to talk about sovereignty, you think about digital sovereignty. How do you ensure all those issues? Do we even have the digital capacity here to enforce on prosecuting such a thing? So, for me, I don't know, are we criminalizing the use of social media now if we begin to use the language of prosecution? So that's something to think about. What capacity do we even have as Nigeria is now to start prosecuting this? So, it's not just a question of statements, but laws, defined terms of what you're prosecuting, and then even the capacity to prosecute, as is being said.
Okay, and finally, we already established this is, taking people's fundamental human rights away from them, the right to express themselves. We've seen the international community intervene, also calling for the acknowledgement and observance of fundamental human rights. And businesses are suffering because a lot of businesses are online using the social media platform, this micro-blogging site, to pass information across and to do business. But here's my question. Does government suffer as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You see, the internet provides a safe place for, information sharing, education, expression, mobilization, and participation. But at the same time, that, when we discuss digital transformation, social media is a place for social economic development as well. It provides the basis for socioeconomic advancement for a state. Now, just early this year or last year, the African Union released the Digital Transformation Strategy for Africa. We are talking of, digitization and issues like that. So it sets us back. It actually sets Nigeria back in that international space in terms of how we are viewed, in terms of reputational value. Nigeria has a huge space in terms of moving Africa forward. And I think this is not a good representation of us as a democratic government. Now, the ripple effect, when you stifle socioeconomic rights of individuals, it also goes back to the state. Businesses exist via social media. People enjoy economic benefits, social benefits, not just freedom of information like we look at it. So it definitely will affect the economy of a state as well. So it's important that we should not be seen as not promoting digital transformation in Nigeria. Empowerment, economic empowerment is also tied to social media. Social media platforms like Twitter has become a basis for exchange of research, exchange of ideas, commerce, trade, digital trade, development. So yes, it can affect Nigeria, impact Nigeria negatively as well, not just the citizens.
Dr. Ifeanyi Achufo, I have to thank you so much for making time to be with us on the program. And thank you for your thoughts and your analysis. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now, as we end the program, I normally would say you can reach out to me on Twitter. But because of the ban, best to do so via Instagram and Facebook. But remember, you can watch this edition again via the Channels TV YouTube channel or go to our website at channelstv.com. Go to Programs and click on Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Thanks for watching.